In this video, we're going to be tactically analysing the game between Newcastle United and Manchester City. We're predominantly going to focus on Newcastle, so we're going to talk a little bit about their press as well as also how they defended in a deep block. And so with that, let's get into it. Newcastle typically pressed in what was a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2, which transitioned to a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 with one of the fullbacks pushing higher. In the central space, they were looking to lock it down, make sure that the likes of Cancelo, Rodri and Walker simply could not find a comfortable touch, and Man City would be forced to playing it longer from the centre-backs or goalkeeper into the fullback or into centre midfielders or wide midfielders dropping in those wide spaces. This pressure came through the Newcastle forwards trying to stay as narrow as possible until the ball went out into a wide space. Once it goes towards the fullback, the near side Newcastle fullback will support the press. Manchester City did try and evade this by having Gundogan drop on the left hand side at times, drop through the middle, or maybe have a ball pass into Haaland centrally, or have Bernardo Silva drop on the right hand side. This pulls apart the Newcastle press and potentially creates more space centrally. Newcastle were looking to try and counter-attack off regains, with them looking to typically find Saint-Maximin on that left-hand side. So on that left-hand side, he was supported by both the centre midfielders as well as the other forwards. So we're thinking of Willock and Joe Linton making runs from centre midfield, overlapping or underlapping him, as well as also Almiron making a run from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. All of these players trying to create chaos for Kyle Walker and John Stones on that side, as well as also Rodri, who typically came across to try and double it. On the right-hand side, you'd have Almiron try and be aggressive on that side as well. All of Newcastle's attacks were filled with energy and dynamism, but on his side, the fullback in Trippier would look to try and support as well, whereas Burn, the left back, was a little bit more reticent. So let's have a look at an example of the Newcastle press. So typical shape by Manchester City with a back two and then a 3 and a 2. However, at times Cancelo and Walker were narrower, with Gundogan or Bernardo Silva dropping into these wide spaces. That would then allow Ederson to be able to play a longer ball into those spaces, with Newcastle's narrow press unable to press them immediately. On this occasion, they are in these more traditional positions. Regardless, this is a really good example of that narrow press by Newcastle. So this space that the Newcastle players are patrolling is usually quite useful for Manchester City with their build-up, because it has Rodri CDM in there. Specifically, it's dangerous, yes, because he is obviously very good on the ball, but also if the play breaks down in this central space, it is extremely problematic for Manchester City because of just how much distance there will be between their back line. So we see that here with the fullback, with the centre back. There is just so much space to attack if Newcastle is able to win it in this space. And so Newcastle are able to convince Manchester City to not play it into this central space. Instead, the ball goes back to Ederson and he plays a longer ball out here into Cancelo. But when the ball goes out into the fullbacks, Newcastle's fullbacks essentially make the 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 shape into more of a 3-5-2 shape. In a scenario, we see Almiron track back, put pressure on Cancelo, and of course in this case, both get something out of it. Almiron forces Cancelo to pass back, but also Cancelo creates space for his centre-back. Okay, and again, Manchester City look to try and play the ball into that hexagon that we showed in the middle of the pitch. So Newcastle again able to constrict immediately. Once the ball goes in there, they're cutting off passes into the other players, and they're making it difficult for, in this case, Gundogan to be able to escape with the ball here. On occasion in this game, Rodri dropped like this to become the central centre-back, allowing the two other centre-backs to be able to split and try and avoid this central space, usually by having the ball played out into the wide spaces, whether it was Bernardo Silva on this right hand side or Gundogan on this left hand side. Gundogan's able to combine here with Rodri, who looks to try and play it to Haaland, who's dropped off the line to try and support this build up. Unfortunately, just a minuscule misjudgment by Haaland of Gundogan's pace, and Newcastle able to snap on the ball, and they're able to create a counter-attack. As mentioned, on this right-hand side, the fullback Trippier will actually support, whereas on the left-hand side, that doesn't happen. So here, Kieran Trippier is looking to try and get on this through ball by Willock. Unfortunately for Newcastle, the pass here for Trippier is off, and Manchester City look to counter-attack. They've, of course, got blistering pace through the middle with Haaland from relatively deep. De Bruyne is able to play this long through ball for Foden to try and chase on the left hand side. Foden gets to the ball and is able to help kind of recycle it on this left hand side with De Bruyne and Gundogan himself, eventually leading to Gundogan overlapping on this left hand side and looking to whip a cross in at the near post for Haaland to try and attack. Another good example of Gundogan getting into this kind of wide space, looking to overlap in this left hand side channel, an alternative of when he makes that run in the left hand half space. Having a look at Newcastle's deep block, a 4-5-1 or a 6-1-3. The Newcastle forwards in Almiron, Wilson and Saint-Maximin typically want to stay high. Saint-Maximin seemed to be given the most license to shirk his defensive responsibilities, allowing him to stay higher up and conserve his energy for when Newcastle won the ball. Whereas the likes of Wilson and Almiron dropped often very deep to try and help out the three centre midfielders Manchester City set up in that 2-3-5 with their inverted fullbacks, so Cancelo and Walker playing the CDM, occasionally making runs from those CDM positions, whether overlapping or underlapping, to force Newcastle into a deeper position. You've got Gundogan continuing to make that late left-hand side half-space run, De Bruyne floating to wherever he could find space, and Haaland offering both a short option, typically when they were building up from deeper, but then also always threatening in behind. And with that, let's have a look at an example. Okay, so in this scenario, in the 13th minute, we're having a look at Manchester City's build-up, Newcastle's defensive shape when in their defensive third, and how they look to counter-attack. First thing to point out is just how deep we've got Willock dropping here. He's trying to double up, make sure that, yes, Gundogan wants to make his run, but someone is tracking him. So it essentially becomes kind of like a back five here. High on this left-hand side, Saint-Maximin still in that counter-attacking position. Almiron's looking to get back, so that he isn't allowed to shirk his defensive responsibility. Gimresh as the CDM, and then also in this side, Willock is dropping deeper, looking to try and patrol just ahead of the defense. Of course, this is Man City, so you're gonna have a lot of players committed forward. You've got Gundogan here looking to make his characteristic run in that left-hand side half space, Haaland occupying in that central space, and Silva looking to try and get back out into a wide space. Pep really loves his wide midfielders to hug the touchline and try and stretch the defenders, and so that's what Bernardo Silva's trying to do here. And then we've got a little bit deeper, De Bruyne looking to try and float into space, happy to go to either side. He's looking to drop into a little pocket of space and try and whip a ball in for the likes of Haaland or Gundogan to threaten. Okay, so eventually Foden plays the ball into Gundogan in that left half space. You've got what is essentially here a 4-4-1-1, so you've got your back four, you've got a very misshapen midfield here, and then you've got here Callum Wilson, your centre forward, technically dropping, with Saint-Maximin still staying high, that being your left winger. And then also just going to point out your inverted fullbacks for Manchester City, who were constantly working with Rodri to just try and prevent counterattacks, but also create a little bit more space out wide for the likes of Foden and Bernardo Silva. And so the ball is played in by Gundogan, he cuts it back, Haaland just isn't able to get a good enough purchase, and from there Willock seeks to escape. Maybe Kyle Walker was rattled. Typically this guy is basically an anti-counter-attack cheat. He is so rapid, he basically shuts down almost any counter-attack, but the dynamism and trickery that Newcastle had on this left-hand side meant even he couldn't stop the Newcastle counter-attacks. Note here also Rodri's position, he wants to come and help Kyle Walker if he's able to slow down Willock, and constantly throughout the game he was looking to try and help double up versus Saint-Maximin in the wide spaces. And so on this occasion we end up with Callum Wilson working in this left-hand side space. He slipped in by Willock, and we've got far side Saint-Maximin, who stayed up throughout that whole phase where Newcastle were having to soak up pressure from Man City, but he's looking to try and get in far side if Wilson can find him. Unfortunately, Ake is able to clear this, but this gives you an idea of Newcastle's defensive solidity and just how quickly they sprung into life once they had the ball. And with that, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, sharing on social media, and with that, we're out.